So hello, this is Corey here with the Public Money. As I said, we're going to do a little bit of cooking. This is not a fancy dish that I'm going to do today. It's a pretty simple dish, but something, you know, we're in a pandemic now. We're all staying at home, probably not being as active as we probably want to be. So this is a good way to throw some vegetables into your diet with flavor profiles that you like. So I'm going to kind of walk you through, set this up to where you can see the cutting board, see what I'm doing, and then we'll move over and we'll kind of show how to put it together and what it does. This is dead simple. The hardest part is prep. So I'm going to put this on, get this set up, and then we'll start doing some mise en place work. So I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, so we're back. I've got my cutting board set up here. I've got my knife. First thing I've got is a half of an onion. Mrs. TPM is over there. She's getting the mushrooms cleaned and ready to slice. I am just cutting an onion into, not really a dice. On this dish, I kind of want it to be a little bit more hearty. So it's kind of bigger pieces. I don't know if you can see those here, but they're pretty good size. I like to have them for the texture. So normally when I dice onions, I do them pretty small, but for this dish, I like to do them a little bit larger. So what we're making is a vegetable pasta primavera right here. And we're gluten-free, obviously. Mrs. TPM, as I said last night, can't eat gluten. She's celiac. So we make a lot of pasta dishes with gluten-free pasta, obviously. Usually when I do bolognese, we use gluten-free pasta, or we use gluten-free gnocchi, which is very good with the bolognese, by the way. So today, though, instead, because it is a weekday, we are eating healthy. This is what I would call a low-calorie day for me. I try to restrain my calories because I do have a touch of diabetes. And so to keep the calories down, we're going to use, phone just hit there, occupational hazard. We're going to use zucchini noodles. And those zucchini noodles will take the place, obviously, of the pasta. So we get our onions nice and sliced into, like I said, you saw pretty good slices, about a 1/4 inch. And this one I'm going to use an additional zucchini. The reason I'm going to use an additional zucchini is not for any certain reason, or not for any recipe reason. It's just because
I bought too many.
We bought one too many when we were making pasta boats. Pardon me, I'm looking for the vegetable peeler here, and I can't find it. We were making pasta boats. Yeah, we were making zucchini boats, and we bought one too many of them, so we had an extra zucchini. So the way I figure it, this is just more vegetables for the thing, right? Makes it a little bit more healthy. And the zucchini will give it a little bit different texture. When you're cooking, you like a lot of texture. I do. The onions are going to soften up. The mushrooms are going to be pretty soft. We're going to put some bell peppers in here, red and yellow. And then, you know, the zucchini noodles. So this will give it just a little bit more of a chewy texture than maybe some of the others will. The bell peppers are going to give it a very crisp texture. I don't like to cook those down too far. Some people like to really soften them. I like to keep them crisp. It's really up to you. The thing that's going to make this dish the best, though, is going to be the sauce that we use, and I'll show you that in a minute. The sauce that we're going to use is called Michael's, and we're going to use the home-style gravy today from them. Michael's, it's a little more expensive, usually on the, you know, if you buy it at full price. But the grocery store we go to had it on sale for pretty much half off. Mrs. TPM just said there. So we stocked up because normally it's about $10 for a jar of sauce. we really stocked up to keep that going. As you can see, I'm using a pretty good size thing of zucchini again. I'm just going to chop this up. Nothing major, but we try to on Monday and Wednesday keep it low calorie. Usually we have our vegetarian meals that day. I'm not saying we're vegetarian. Those of y'all who have followed my Twitter feed know for a fact that I'm not. But I do see a value of taking a break from the meat occasionally, throwing a lot of veggies in, making sure to eat them. And if you do it right, it can be pretty tasty. I'm not going to say that you won't notice the difference. That's silly. Anyone who says that is not really telling you the truth. Oh, it's a veggie meal and you won't notice that the beef's not in there.
Bullshit.
Exactly. Yes, you will. You'll notice it. So now we've got that. We've got the onions. We've got the zucchini chopped up. I'm going to work on the bell pepper here. Get the sticker off. Put the sticker over there.
Oh, did you wash it?
No. I'm going to cut it up and wash it.
Oh.
I'll cut the top off that we're not going to use.
Okay.
So the trick is you always want to wash your produce, especially during this time, because all that's going around. My thing is I will take the top off, and then these bell peppers have a ton of seeds in them, and you really don't want those. I'm going to go rinse this real quick in the water, and that also helps me get all the seeds out, which would take me forever, by the way, to pick out by hand. So now that that's washed, I'm going to give it a pat dry. And then just like everything else, I'm going to chop this up. Still have one little seed in there. That's a good way to get the seeds out of your bell peppers. Take the top off of them, wash them down, and then seeds are gone. For the most part. If you find one little one, just pull it out and then just chop it. Again, we're going about the same size piece, roughly a ½ inch, somewhere around there. But I want this to kind of be rustic in taste and mouthfeel. If I'm making my bolognese sauce, bless you, Mrs. TPM just sneezed.
Thank you.
If I'm making my bolognese sauce, I'm going to slice all this stuff much smaller. Of course, bolognese doesn't have the red pepper in it, but it does have onions, a mirepoix basically. So onions, carrots, and celery, and then beef, ground beef, or turkey. You can use turkey. I prefer beef though. I made it with buffalo, which is actually pretty outstanding. It is wise on the buffalo to try to add a little bit of fat to it somehow, because buffalo is a fairly lean meat. So you can see on this one, I'm going to pull out the seeds. And then if you'll pardon me, I'm going to give this a wash. And we're back with, dry this off a little bit.
You want to make your game?
Buffalo. So, this is just, you know, I don't know, a lot of people, some people do it, some people don't. I'm a big believer, before you apply any heat to anything, do your chopping first, get everything in place. That's why they call it mise en place. It's a French word, which basically means shit in place. Which, you know, that's pretty much the loose translation of it. But in place is in place. So, you know, it basically means just getting all your shit in place before you start cooking. I like to do that because sometimes when you cook, things start happening pretty fast. And if you don't have things chopped, you could burn things inadvertently. Ruin pans. I wasn't going to bring that up. So,
I admit it.
You know, so I just like to get my chopping out of the way first. Try to get everything going smooth. That way what'll happen is I'll put all this stuff in the pan in stages, right? When I start putting it in the pan. And during that point, we'll probably have Mrs. TPM holding the camera. And because I'm going to need 2 hands. And it's kind of hard to record when you've got both hands working. And I haven't had that third arm installed yet. I haven't gotten that technology to where I'm comfortable having it done. So we're almost done chopping up the bell peppers. What I'm going to do for my phone fell again, I'm sorry. What I'm going to do again is I'm going to chop up the mushrooms. Sometimes I'd slice them. This time, as you can see, I'm just going to put them in quarters. Again, that's because I want this to be a real chunky, earthy sauce. It's more for a texture thing. Now, I will give you a caution when you cook mushrooms and onions together. And we learned this a long time ago when Emeril Lagasse used to be on Food Network. I know a lot of y'all are probably too young to remember that. But I'm old enough to remember a time. Honey, could you do me a favor?
Yeah, baby.
Could you please, out of the refrigerator, grab me a beer?
Of course. Which fridge?
The white fridge. Just,
small beer fridge?
yeah, if there's a can down there, I'll take it.
Okay.
Whatever's canned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Headliner?
Headliner's great. Yeah, so back in the day, pardon me. Excuse me. Back in the day, Emeril Lagasse used to be on Food Network. And he had a cooking show. It was probably one of their most popular cooking show at the time, wouldn't you say?
Yeesh.
I mean, everybody watched it.
Oh, God, yeah. That's how I learned actually how to cook.
Yeah.
Most of it.
He taught a lot of us how to cook. I knew how to cook a little from working in the restaurant industry. Back in the day, I was a bartender and a waiter. And I would, like any good restaurant industry person, I befriended the chefs. Especially when you're waiting tables, because that means they give your tables priority. So I'd sit back there and listen to them and take tips from them and watch them cook and learn quite a bit. Everything else I learned from, of course, my mom and my grandmother. I learned how to make turkey dressing from my grandmother.
Which one?
Mama, my dad's mom. I learned how to grill from my grandfather and from trial and error. And as Mrs. TPM will tell you, there was a lot of error at first.
Well, we had grill issues.
Yeah, well, yeah, we were living in an apartment, and I had a very small little, like, camping grill. And I would try to do all my grilling on that. You know, like those things they don't teach you in school, right? How to work charcoal. I didn't know. I just threw it down, put the lighter fluid on it. When it started flaming, I threw the steaks on it. First time I ever did it. That's obviously wrong. And we learned. We're sitting there, why aren't the steaks cooking? Well, they weren't cooking because the flame wasn't hot enough. But that's okay. So I've got everything chopped. I've got my headliner blonde ale from St. Arnold's. That's a local Houston brewery.
Do you like the olive oil?
It's very good. Yes, it's very good. It's a nice blonde ale, kind of a summer ale. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause this. We're going to get set up for the cooking.
You said the homestyle gravy?
The homestyle gravy, yes, ma'am.
That's the last jar of it. We have 2 Arrabiata.
Okay, using Arrabiata then.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna change it. We're gonna use an Arrabiata because we only have one homestyle gravy left, and that's my favorite. So, but we're gonna turn around. We're gonna get this set up. We're gonna get the camera into Mrs. TPM's hand, and I'm going to start cooking things. And again, I'll kind of walk you through how we cook it, what we're doing, and then we'll show it on a plate. It's not gonna be pretty, but it's gonna taste good. So Just give us a minute to get set up. Okay? Let me know when you're going. All right, so we got everything set up. I've got olive oil. And I'm going to cover the bottom of the pot fairly liberally with olive oil because this is all the olive oil I'm going to put in it. And that's going to be the entire thing. I'm going to turn the heat up to one notch under high, as you can see, because I want some good heat. I want some good heat to cook the onions and the mushrooms and all that. So that's all the oil that goes into it. I don't cook with a lot of oil. You'll find out here in a minute I don't cook with a lot of salt, but I do cook with some salt. So that's going to take a minute or two to heat up. So while it heats up, this is the sauce we're using. It's Michael's of Brooklyn. We're using the Arrabiata. Again, these are like $9.99 normal, sometimes $10.99 at certain stores. If you can find them basically half off like we did, grab all of them. You can, because they're very good and they're very expensive. And I'm going to bring this in close here. If you can see it, it's gluten-free. So using a gluten-free sauce is real important when you're cooking gluten-free, obviously. You know, if you do that and you
opened it.
You opened it. If you, it makes no sense because not all pasta sauces, believe it or not, are gluten-free. There are some inexpensive ones, some store brands that actually do contain gluten. You really have to read the label. Things to look for: modified food starch. That's an item that can trip you up. Modified food starch is usually made out of wheat, unless it specifically says modified cornstarch. But there are a lot of cheaper sauces that will use modified food starch. It's a thickener. And it's kind of a cut corners processed food way around. There are, hold on, she's grabbing something. Camera's going crazy.
Sorry, there's that one that's good.
Yeah.
That's less expensive.
And then another one that's pretty good that's less expensive. This is also gluten-free. It's multibene. One of the ones that they have that I really like, where's the label? It says it's gluten-free. This one's also no sugar added, which Michael's is too. So if you have a health condition, then those are good ones to use.
Their vodka sauce is
amazing. The multibene that I just showed you, their vodka sauce is outstanding. It's one of my favorite sauces that are made. So we're just waiting for this to heat up. It's going to be just a second. Once it heats up, we'll come back and we'll talk to you then. Okay, so we're back and we have a change of recipe. We do our grocery shopping once per week. We did it on Saturday. We bought the zucchini noodles at the grocery store. And I guess the ones we got were too close to the expiration date. We put them in the fridge. We didn't check on them. They went bad. So, gluten-free pasta is always good. We're still going to get plenty of veggies in this. This is still, it's a very good pasta. It's made out of brown rice, so 100% brown rice. But if we're going gluten-free and if I'm making my bolognese or something like that, that's pretty much what I'm going to use. Is either that or H-E-B store brand. They make a really good spiral pasta that I use. So our oil is nice and hot. Everything else stays the same, right? So our oil is nice and hot. I've got my smorgasbord of vegetables here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the onions and I'm going to put them in first. Now the reason you want to do that, and this goes back to Emerald on his television show, when you're cooking onions and mushrooms together, when you put the mushrooms in, the onions stop cooking. And the reason the onions stop cooking is because the mushrooms take up all of the, we have a critic outside. So I'm going to put in salt. It's going to be a little bit. The reason I put so much salt in there is, again, that's the only salt I'm going to add to this recipe. I'm also going to pepper. This pepper grinder doesn't come out quite like I want, so it looks like I'm putting a lot, but when you'll see when I pull back, I'm really not. And because we like a lot of pepper, I'm going to probably add a little bit more. So we're going to break these up, and we're going to let them simmer just until they're kind of soft through, a little translucent. Not going to take but a couple minutes. These onions cook pretty quick at this temperature. It does behoove you to move them around a little at first. You want a little caramelization on them, but not a lot. For this one, we're not caramelizing onions here. We're just sauteing them. But we do want to get them to the point almost where we want them, because again, the next thing I'm going to do is put in the mushrooms, and when I put those in, the onions are going to stop cooking for a minute. And they'll continue not to cook until I add the sauce, at which point this is going to saute down for about, 15 minutes. Then we're going to make it just like we make a pasta sauce. We'll boil the pasta. We'll put the pasta in with the sauce. Bob's your uncle, and we'll be done. So these are almost where I want them. So now I'm going to grab the potato vegetables again. And I'm going to add the longest cooking thing, which is the zucchini and the peppers. The last thing that I'll add to this mix is my mushrooms. A lot of the cooking for the mushrooms is going to happen in the sauce instead of in the oil. I say that and they're going to fall everywhere. So just follow that for a second while I pick this out. I didn't do the best job of stacking on this one. I'll get better at this as I get used to talking and cooking. Normally I'm focusing with the tongue out of the side of my mouth, like I'm really trying when I'm chopping. So we're going to put these in again. I'll probably hit them with another shot of pepper, probably not another shot of salt. There is some inherent saltiness in the pasta sauce. So again, I don't like a whole lot of sauce, so it's not my MO to put a whole lot of sauce in there.
Some salt?
Salt. Thank you. Salt. The nice thing about having Mrs. TPM run this camera for me is that she's also going to be my editor. So when I say something dumb, she'll correct me. Yeah, I think I need just a shot more pepper. Not seeing the pepper spread like I want. We're going to cook these down. Now, this is another situation where I'm not going to cook them down too far. There's still a big simmer element that has to happen on this dish. When I add the sauce, we're going to put it on like medium heat, and we're going to let it go for 15 minutes. And during that time, these vegetables are really going to soak up the sauce. And then even when that's done, I'm going to get another pot, and I'm going to make some pasta. And when I do the pasta, this stuff is, even going to be cooking down a little more. So I want to have some texture to it. I don't want to make it all mush. The last stage of this are the mushrooms. And the good thing about this is you can make this with anything that you want. Any vegetable really that you have and you like.
Frozen broccoli is good. Frozen cauliflower.
Frozen broccoli, fresh cauliflower, fresh broccoli if you have time to split the head.
Carrots.
Before it. Carrots are good. As I said in my bolognese, I'm a big user of carrots and celery and onion. That's my mirepoix. If you trade out the carrots in a mirepoix and you use onion, celery, and green pepper, you have what the Louisianans call a trinity. And there's not too many Cajun dishes that involve like rice, beans, or whatever that aren't made with the trinity. Gumbo's made with the trinity. Etouffee usually starts with the trinity. Jambalaya starts with the trinity. If we have time, and if it doesn't get too hot one day, I'll show y'all how to do a gluten-free gumbo that actually uses a roux, and it uses a trinity, and it uses gluten-free beer instead of regular beer. And I make a gluten-free roux, and there's ways that I do it that actually makes it thicken up pretty well. That doesn't actually take too long to put together, not much longer than this. The longest part is getting the roux ready, most difficult part. So this, as you can see, looking at the texture of the mushrooms, is almost done. If you look at that mushroom right there, it's just getting nice and glossy. It's almost done. So the last step to this, and then we'll put a pause on it and come back later, is going to be to add the sauce. I've got everything in there. I'm well and truly going. I'm going to pour that sauce in. We'll get all of it. So this stuff ain't cheap. I want to make sure that I get all of it. We got our sauce poured in. We're going to give it a stir to get that good sauce down in the bottom. We get all the vegetables mixed in. Depending on how fancy you want to go with this, you can add a bay leaf. I typically don't. I do add bay leaves to my bolognese and other pasta sauces that I do. I do a linguine Alfredo, which is basically just cream and butter in the sauce, which is the traditional way. The flour that Americans started using, or actually, I'm sorry, it's butter and cheese. I was thinking something else. The cream and flour that Americans started adding was because we had inferior butter and cheese over here. So this mixture is going to sit for about 15 minutes down on medium heat, a little bit less than medium, and it's going to simmer there. And it'll go for about 15 minutes. And then when that's done, we'll come back, put this together, and plate it. See y'all in about 15. Okay, so back real quick. I'm not going to show you how to cook pasta. I'm sure you've seen how to do that. You put it in the water. I do want to mention one thing on pasta cooking, though. Salt your water. Olive Garden got in big trouble for not salting their pasta water. The reason they said not to do it is that the salt made their pots corrode too much. But you will notice the difference in taste if you don't salt your pasta water. So just want to look at the pasta sauce here. You can see it's been bubbling for about 15 minutes. You can always cook it longer. When I cook bolognese, I cook it for about 4 hours after I put it together on a real low setting. And I think it makes it taste better. It makes the sauce kind of all come together. But this has gone 15 minutes on a pretty high heat, and it's all come together pretty well. So our last step is going to be to cook this pasta, and I'll come back and then we'll drain the noodles and pour them into here, mix it all together, add some Parmesan cheese, and we'll have dinner, and we'll show you then. I will say that our dinner tonight is going to be a 2-beer dinner. Got an 8-track by Real Ale. Typically, when I cook, I tell time by how many beers it takes to cook it.
Are we going to have a rosé or no?
Pasta like this. We can if you want. We can go rosé if you want. If you want to drink, if you don't because you have to work, then no. We can just drink.
We have half a bottle of rosé in there. We
can finish off the rosé. That's fine. So, again, I judge how long it's going to take to cook my meals by how many beers it takes. Meal like this is a 2-beer meal. cooking steaks is about a 3 beer meal. Smoking ribs out in the smoker is going to be about an 8 beer meal. Just depends on what you're cooking and how long it's going to take. I'm a firm believer of having a little bit to drink and a little wine or beer while you cook. Probably stay away from the hard liquor because you're handling a knife. But once that pasta gets done, we'll show you how to plate this and show you what it looks like, and we'll be back. All right, we're back. So I've got my pasta cooked and drained. Got my sauce ready to go. Putting this together is really easy. Dump in the pasta. And you'll see on a lot of the cooking shows, when they do, like on Food Network and whatnot, they all have all the sauce real nice in a pan, and then they put the pasta in, and they kind of saute it. That's great if you're doing one portion at a time. Or if you're doing, but if you're making a dinner, just put it in the pot. Give it a good stir. You want to get all the sauce and the noodles put in together.
I forgot the bowls.
I'll get the bowls. So you mix these together. Like I said, you got to give it a little stir because the sauce does like to go around the edge. You can see on the edge there. Don't be afraid to give it a stir. I keep these burners on just a little bit around low to keep some heat on it. If it gets a little cool, you can always turn it up just a little bit. I wouldn't go up probably a quarter. So the technical name for this dish is Pasta Primavera. This, of course, is a gluten-free version. But if you're a pizza fan, or if you just like spaghetti, again, we're in the age of coronavirus, right? Nobody can go anywhere. We're not moving around as much as we used to. This is a great way to get in your veggies. It tastes good. It gives you the flavors that you like and you want. As you can see, I put a lot of sauce into this. It's got a lot of tomatoes, which are good for you. It's got a lot of vegetables that are good for you. It's got a lot of pasta that's good for you.
Next time we'll use zucchini.
Next time we'll use zucchini. So my last tip that I'm going to say before me and Mrs. TPM sit down and eat this, when you get a Parmesan, get some good Parmesan, splurge a little bit for it. I'm not saying you have to get the deli stuff. That can be very expensive. But get more than what you can typically find in the green bottle, right? Go a step above that. It's going to taste a lot better. So that's it for tonight. That is our Pasta Primavera with gluten-free noodles, gluten-free pasta sauce. We have the dogs freaking out.
Yeah, because we're eating again early.
We're eating before them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll probably come back and record some more stuff tonight. Oh, yeah, and if you want to mix something with this, do a little bit of wine. We're doing a rosé from France. Doing a French rosé. So that's that. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll come back after I eat and clean the kitchen. And then we'll talk a little bit more, maybe play a little bit of video poker. Then I'll put this together and post it tonight.
After I go to bed.
Talk to y'all later. Quads for all. Bye. Okay, so hello. Hope you enjoyed the cooking video earlier. It was great. Dinner was good. It turned out really good. That was kind of a gluten-free way to do spaghetti. Hope you enjoyed it. Got myself another headliner. My thought was tonight that I might show you a little bit more video poker, but I decided to spare you from that tonight. Winds haven't been going too great on haven't been going too great on videopoker.com, and Bull Durham's on TV. I think I'm going to watch that. One of my favorite movies. One of those movies that I always kind of have to stop and watch, and so I figure I'm just going to kind of take it easy, enjoy my beer, I'll post these together, try to get them up tonight, all the videos that I did. I hope you enjoyed the cooking. You know, it was a simple dish tonight, kind of pasta primavera. Done with gluten-free noodles, gluten-free sauce. You know, like I said, you don't think about gluten being in pasta sauce, but it is. It can be. A lot of the sauces have modified food starch in them, especially some of the cheaper ones. So it's always good to pay a little bit more. And if you're trying to avoid gluten, make sure you don't get it. I really like that Michael's of Brooklyn. Again, we were going to have zucchini noodles, but it kind of went wrong on us. But always have a backup, always have something on hand so you can cook. Probably won't do another cooking video until this weekend. I think Saturday we're going to eat out. Sunday, I think I'm going to grill out in the front yard. The front driveway, I'm going to do jalapeno poppers for the neighborhood and some other things. We might do a little cooking on that on Sunday. But I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you know, during these weird times when we can't eat out as much as we could, and although that's about to change, it's still going to be 25% of capacity in restaurants. So it might be a little harder to get a table. So if you do have to cook, remember, follow the details, use your salt, use your seasoning, salt your wok, make sure your cuts are right, kind of get everything how you want it to be, and you know, just try again. It doesn't always have to be fancy to taste good. And in lieu of pizza sometime, try that pasta primavera. None of us are exercising like we should right now. We wish we were, but we weren't, or we're not, just because, you know, we're stuck at home. So try to eat healthy, but tasty. Splurge on the little things, like a little bit better Parmesan cheese, you know, some good pasta sauce. Try to do your splurges there. Then you can save money buying, you know, vegetables, and gluten-free pasta is not that expensive. Or you can use the zucchini noodles, or you can make your own if you have the right, you know, if you have the right attachments. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll try to maybe get back to some video poker tomorrow, but I'm going to spare you that tonight because I'm going to watch Bull Durham. So quads for all, and we'll see y'all at a later date. Bye.